Welcome back to Data to Decisions. In the previous video, we focused on collecting data from a website and bringing it into Excel and making sure that it's clean enough for our reporting. Specifically, what you see on screen is the ultimate final output that we are driving towards, and we want to build this interactive report based on publicly available data on Bureau of Labor Statistics website. And in the previous video, we talked about how to extract the data, clean up the data, and get it into a table within Excel. In this video, we will be focusing on creating the necessary columns, additional columns that might be missing, and also we'll be building the foundation for this interactive slicer. How can the slicer, when the user interacts with it, can drive the calculations behind the scenes and also update the visuals and the table. So that's what we're going to see in this video. Let's get started. So coming back into our data, which is where we have the raw data extracted from the website in a table called data. Now, one thing you will notice is that in this table, we have the unemployed percent. So basically unemployment percent for November, for October, September, and the previous November. So all those data there. But what we don't have is the change in this month from the previous month, change in this month from the previous year. We don't have those calculations. So I'm going to start with just adding those calculations because that is part of the final output that we need to create. So I'm going to go ahead and type in right next to the column headers, unemployment percentage, M, small, lowercase, capital case, M, so month over month, and I'm going to hit enter. And this adds a column to the table. And I'm going to put a simple formula to say, go and select the November 2023 value, subtract October 2023 value. That's it. I'm going to hit enter. We have that calculation. I'm going to use something similar for unemployment percentage. So let me move further down here. Unemployment percentage year over year. And we will use a very similar formula, but not the same. Would be, I want to take November 2023, subtract the November 2022. So I need to go all the way back here, November 2022, and hit enter. So now we have created two more calculations which are required in our final report. So now we are ready to build the foundation for our slicer. So in order to do so, I'm going to go into an open sheet, empty sheet. I'm going to call it help because this is something that ultimately the output doesn't have to have the sheet. We can hide the sheet. So I'm going to type in measure and what are the three measures that we want in the slicer. So I'm going to choose unemployment percent month over month, unemployment percent year over year. Now that I have this, I'm going to select this Control T to convert it into a table and click on my table has headers and hit OK. So now we have a table. I'm going to insert pivot table and I'm going to put that pivot table right here and hit OK. Okay. And now on the pivot table pane here on the right, I'm just going to check the measure, select it. Automatically, it'll put it into the rows section, which is where we want. So that's done. Nice. And now we will go and select inside, anywhere inside that pivot table, hit insert, slicer. So now there's only one column. So it says measure. I'm going to hit OK. There you have it. So now we have a slicer. So what happens is when you select one of the values in the slicer, automatically the pivot table value gets selected. And there's only one being selected at a time. So cell B10 is the cell where the chosen value or the selected value in the slicer will be located. So I am going to click cell B10, go into the name bar. And then in this name box, I'm just going to type in as metric. Okay. So now what we have done is we created a table of measures, we created a pivot table on top of that, and we created a slicer on top of that. And so when you now click on the slicer, the pivot table updates, and now this metric value will change. So let's test it. I'm going to say equals metric, and it will give me the value here. And as soon as I change this, you'll see that the metric value keeps changing. So that part is done. Now, how do we connect this thing into our calculation? So for this, I'm going to go slicer, cut, go into the data tab, and then I'm going to go here and paste it. So we'll see how this slicer will control our values. Okay. So again, resetting our understanding of the columns here. So we have the November unemployment, we have the percentage, and then the percentage month over month. And these are the three columns that we want the slicer to um, choose based on the user selection. So I'm going to create a new column in column P called value, and I want to store what the user selection in the slicer is. I want to calculate the appropriate measure and store it. So let me explain how it works. We're going to use a switch function, switch open parenthesis. And what we're going to do is the switch function needs an expression, or in this case, I'm going to type in metric because metric is the name that we gave to the selection of the slicer, selected value in the slicer. So metric. And if the metric value is unemployment percentage, then use the value from this column, which is the November 2023 unemployment percent, comma. To go to the next row in a formula when you're writing, you can use Alt plus Enter. And you don't have to do it. You can write in a very wide formula, but it just makes it a little bit easier to read this way. Unemployment percentage, MOM. If the value is unemployment month over month, then use this column's value, comma, I'll enter unemployment percentage year over year, comma, then use this value. If none of this, then don't display anything. Let's say, for example, hit enter. So let's test it out. If I hit unemployment percentage in the slicer, then you should see values from here get presented here. So 2.4, 4.4. Let's look at the first two rows. 2.4, 4.4 should appear there as soon as I hit this. There we go. Works. Let's say month over month. Month over month is 0.1, 0.1, and then this is 0.2, right? So let's look at these values. They should come up here as soon as I select it. If I do year over year, then this should match exactly this. So it works. So what we have accomplished here is based on the selection in the slicer, the value column will automatically update. So that's what we have done. Now, in the next section, we will use this value column to create a map visual. We can also use this to create the top 10 and the bottom 10 tables. So let's continue in the next video.